but I'll sit in the chair. Sometimes I'm engaged in activities for money that I would prefer not to be doing. And
We're
Abraham,
just a little bit of a ringing. If you could turn us all down some. Yes?
you have said that if we find ourselves doing something that doesn't feel good, to stop. Yet I don't feel that I'm able to reach for a high enough vibration to be able to feel comfortable with stopping these activities at the same time.
Well then, what you must do is make the best of it where you are. In other words, you're right. You say, so I'm pointed upstream as I say, I don't really want to do this. And then you say, but it does give me money, but I don't really want to do this. But it does give me money, but I don't really want to do this. And then you say, how do I know what's the appropriate thing to do? I don't really want to do this, but it does bring me money. And we say, now find some way of standing where you are, not trying to take action to change the circumstance. Jerry and Esther had an enlightening experience just recently. The car that they tow behind the monster bus has a drive shaft disconnect. They pull a lever and it disconnects the drive shaft so that the transmission and everything flows freely while they tow it. And then once they unhook it from the bus, they re-engage that. And it has not been re-engaging easily. There's something out of alignment. So Jerry can always get it in, but it's required him crawling under and sort of physically, visually lining things up and pounding them into place. So they were towing from San Francisco to San Diego. And Jerry was thinking about the unhooking and the re-engaging process. And he said to Esther, we'll put it in a place where I can easily get under it. And Esther said, you know, since we're not there yet, so we're not faced with it not re-engaging, and you're not crawling under it yet, since we haven't come to that reality yet, maybe we can envision it differently. And it was sort of startling to her. She felt this relief in the thought of that. What she was saying is what you've been hearing us say, what many of you have been saying is, since my future hasn't happened yet, I can envision it how I want it. And in envisioning a future, which is easier to believe than a now reality, it can be pure in my vibration, which means my future envisioning is my excuse for releasing my resistance right now. And in releasing my resistance right now, I begin going with the flow. Don't you think that's interesting? So anyway, they got to San Diego and Jerry crawled under the car and banged it into place. But they had great relief in the envisioning. They had great relief in the envisioning that we are saying to them is part of the solution that they're looking for, but don't get too hung up on the solution that you're looking for. Instead, celebrate the relief that you had then. Are you getting this? In other words, what most physical beings say, yes, but I'll do this, but will it fix it now? And we say, it might not fix it now, but it will fix it eventually. It will fix it eventually. If you will use your now to positively anticipate, it must fix it eventually. It must. It just has to. The solution is there and you will find it. And anyway, and this is the big realization that Esther had, even though she's heard us say this thousands of times, the big realization that Esther had was that thought just felt better now. And what difference did it make? They had 3 more hours of driving before they had to do whatever they had to do anyway. So why not have relief now in the meantime? And so what we're saying to you is relief now in the meantime, relief now in the meantime, relief now in the meantime is going to bring you a resolution. It will. So Jerry tells the story. Years ago, he came upon a bully beating up on an old man. And Jerry was torn, sort of like the question that you asked. Seemed like no right way. I can get involved and probably get beat up a little myself. or I can walk away and let this poor man be beaten up, which I can't stand. No right action. And we say, that's right. Sometimes by virtue of the vibration you had going, Jerry was going to make the world a better place. He beat up everybody who was unjust for a long time. Anybody that wronged anybody, he just beat them up. And then they went off and wronged somebody else. In other words, it didn't change anything. All it did was give him momentary involvement in something. So it feels like there's no right action that I can take. And we say, then take the best action that you can take, which means keep doing what you're doing so the money will keep flowing. But flow your thoughts about your future in a way that feel better now. So does it feel better to say, I'm stuck here forever, or to say, this is temporary?
Temporary.
Does it feel better to say, I should have chosen better, or I made the best decisions I can make along the way?
Making the best decisions.
Does it feel better to say, this and this and this and this is wrong with this, or there are some aspects to this that were appealing in the beginning that are still appealing now? Mm-hmm. In other words, you just reach for a way. So what we're saying to you is, you deal with the action in whatever way you need to, but you let your big picture be about feeling better about it, feeling better about it, feeling better about it. So the question is, Abraham, I'm sitting on a park bench and I feel fear. Does that mean there's a monster in the bushes? Or do I just think there's a monster in the bushes? What should I do? And we say, run. Get off the bench. Get off the bench. You'll feel better. Well, let us ask you the question. You tell us, if you think there's a monster in the bushes, whether it's really there or not, which feels better to you? Which is upstream? To sit there and endure the monster in the bushes, or to do something with yourself in relationship? So you say, well, leaving the bench makes me feel better. And we say, then that's the right action, isn't it? And sometimes there's action that is required. But if you will let the root of all of your action be which action feels best, and then once you get away from the bench where you're no longer worried about the monster per se, he's not breathing down your neck right now this minute. Now begin envisioning the future more as you want it to be. And before you know it, monsters will not have access to you. They'll zig while you're zagging. Does that mean all the monsters will go away? No, monsters have a right to live too. And one man's monster is another man's pet. In other words, you don't get to choose everybody else's pie. You want to talk something specific? We know that we're close to the end here.
No, that's very good. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Good time for a segment of refreshment. We are complete. And are you refreshed? Yes. Good. Now what?